Welcome back. We continue with our focus this morning. Is lawlessness the new normal? The country seems to be beset with violent crime, organised hits, vandalism and illegal strikes. To discuss this even further, we're joined by author of Blame Me on Apartheid, Thamsanqa Malinga. He's also written an opinion piece, an op-ed titled Fires, Robberies, Lawlessness, the ANC's Dystopian South Africa. Well, he joins us now. Mr. Malinga, thank you for your time. Good morning to you. What is going on in South Africa? I know your opening piece or the opening statement on your op-ed is you placing the blame on Luthuli House, saying they're absolutely responsible for what we have seen these past couple of years and what we should expect if indeed the ANC should rule until Jesus comes.
Yeah, I even say that they have already made that claim that they will rule until Jesus comes. But if we allow them to rule until Jesus comes, it means that we are also allowing our country to be some sort of a dystopian society. We are allowing our country to move further into lawlessness because they have shown, in fact, they have, especially the ministers who sit in the security cluster, have shown that they are not prioritizing the issue of law and order. So in that way, as a ruling party, and the ANC likes to say, no, there's a difference between the ANC in Luthuli House and the ANC, the ruling party. But at the end of the day, they go to Parliament and say, yeah, the resolution of a Nasrec conference or the resolution of this and that conference are saying this 1, 2, 3. So I am saying it's the ANC's blame, whether they see themselves as two separate centers of power. They are to blame because they are the ministers who are part of the security cluster are ANC members. They are letting us down to an extent that, every day you will see cash and transit robberies. I mean, I opine in that piece to say it was in 2019, where by June we had seen 153 cash and transit robberies, which when you look at it mathematically, it means we were averaging a cash and transit heist a day in the country. So you have that, you have fires breaking out. I make example of the Parliament when it burnt down in January. Right. To say, imagine if Westminster Palace would would burn, and then they say, no, there was a stranger. I mean, it's supposed to be the safest place. I've been there. It's stringent to get in there, but all of a sudden one guy gets in and burns the whole building down.
Yeah. You talk about the responsibility they have, to enforcing rule and order. In your opinion, do they themselves, our government leaders, our political leaders, have rule of, law and order? Do they oblige by it? Can you rate them in terms of, how they are as leaders, in terms of the examples they set when it comes to, the enforcement of rule and order in this country?
That's where the problem is. They say the fish starts to rot from the top, from the head. So because there is no accountability at the top, then it will cascade down to a point whereby you get the lowest of the government employees also embarking on criminal activities of soliciting bribes, of rigging tenders, because there is no accountability at the top. And because, again, there is no accountability at the top. I mean, we've had a national police commissioner imprisoned for accepting bribes from a drug dealer. What do you expect the constable who patrols the street would do? So this is the problem. There is no accountability from the top, and it just trickles down to a point whereby the society says, hey, I mean, those guys are not doing anything. Those guys are not being held accountable. Why should we? Or those guys are not abiding by the law. Why should we?
So where does that place citizens, Thamsanqa? What should citizens do if these indeed are, some of the leaders that we have in the country being accused of whether it's corruption, criminal activity, the list goes on in terms of some of the allegations, hideous allegations, against some of our leaders. Where does this place citizens? Where do they then place their trust in terms of the enforcement of rule of law and order in this country?
That's the problem. As citizens of the country are now more like children who find themselves without parents to guide them. I once wrote another piece where I quoted Gwen Gwenya of the DA. In that quote, she says, there is no rule of law in South Africa. The law and its enforcers quiver before the powerful. And it's the end of law and order, because up from the rubble emerges a vigilante messiah who will uphold the law by any means, including his own lawlessness. So that is where citizens are finding themselves now. They're finding themselves to be guardians of law and order, and to an extent that they also, do not see their own lawlessness. We see vigilantism. It is because there's no accountability in terms of law and order from the top echelons. So those who are at the bottom, then they take it up to themselves to be the upholders of the law, but at the same time they are breaking the law. You get revenge killings, you get kangaroo courts, all of those. So citizens are finding themselves in a stage whereby it's becoming like a post-apocalyptic society, where one madman is just rising up and saying, I declare myself ruler now. From now on, I am the ruler. So the citizens are at that point. That is why we were seeing a whole lot of protests, by a certain movement that went about wanting to chuck foreigners out, wanting to chuck drug dealers out. They couldn't see their own lawlessness.
Yeah.
And now everyone, that becomes easy for a township in Cape Town to say, oh, let us also start our own movement and start kick people out. Then they're operating outside of the law. So it leaves citizens at a point whereby it is just going to snowball, and by the end of the day, we won't be able to break.
And I just wonder if the protection of the Constitution is actually effective, if it's enough. What do you think? Is it effective? Is it in conflict? What do you make of what is meant to be, sort of like a guideline as to the functions and structural systems with which this country should abide by?
Well, it's always said that we have the best constitution in the world. And I was in a debate last week that said, hey, listen, let's cut the brown stuff. This is not the best constitution in the world. And if you read it, I mean, if you read the Bill of Rights, and you then go on to the section that talks about the rights of those who are accused of crime. I mean, I think the rights of those who are accused of criminal activities, it reads about 2 pages, but the Bill of Rights reads about 1 page. So it gives more. Our Constitution also, allows that in a way, to an extent that is why in most cases policemen will be afraid to act, because they will be disciplined, because if you arrest a person, then there's all sorts of rights that the person who's being arrested has, instead of me being Tammy and being a taxpayer and a law-abiding citizen. So our Constitution also needs to be looked at in terms of the effectiveness part of it, in terms of how do we make sure that we cut down on lawlessness by making sure that we do not give so many rights to those who are accused of criminal activities.
Well, I appreciate you speaking to us this very morning as we continue to try and find some answers as to, why this continues, the lawlessness in this country continues. Tammy, the author of Blame Me on Apartheid, Thamsanqa Malinga, joining us this morning. Thank you for your time.